Hi, it's Dave Dinkel. I'm still struggling with trying to get your 2-minute tips into, I don't know how long, 4 minutes probably. The question today is, or the thing that came up is, how long an inspection period do you need? Well, the simple answer is as long as you can get. With Homeowners Direct, we've gotten them as long as 90 days on higher priced properties. On commercial properties, it's called a due diligence period, and typically 90 to 120 days is a minimum number. But let's go back in time. If you're dealing with a listed property, the listing agent is going to want you to, preferably do a 10-minute inspection period, and your earnest money deposit is hard. We typically ask for 15 days on short sales, and remember this: that inspection period on short sales does not start when you execute the contract, both parties. It is not effective for the inspection period. The contract's effective, but here's the problem. The agent says to you, no, the inspection period has to start when the contract is effective. That's what the contract says. No, that depends on where you are. For years, we put in the contracts on short sales. Inspection period starts when buyer receives written approval from the lender. When's that? It could be 6 months down the road. Well, why would you want to start the inspection period 6 months down the road? Because the house could have been stripped. It could have been burned. And if you say to the realtor, hey, I want to see the property 15 days before, I want my inspection period to start, and I'll close 2 days after that. Whatever. Okay, typically it never bothers the lender. They have never, ever come back and said you won't do that. 80% of the time, the realtor says, no, we want it to start now. He wants it to start now simply because he knows that if something happens to the property, you're locked in for your earnest money deposit. So, ironically, in our state, the State Realtors Association changed their contract. They have an addendum that says exactly that. The inspection period doesn't start until, in fact, you get written approval by the lender. So they've come on board with us, with me, as investors, which makes common sense. Now, what about REOs? Well, you're going to find out that they're strict on what they want to do. Fannie Mae, for example, is 10 days, but Fannie Mae now is an auction property, so you got a home path, all that kind of stuff. They're good for 10 days. However, warning, with Fannie Mae, your inspection period starts when they notify you, but they may notify the listing agent and you by email well after the fact that when the contract's dated. You need to figure out when the contract's dated. Now they've changed, Fannie Mae changes their rules all the time, not all the time, but enough, you're going to get stuck if you're not up to date on what happens. It's a recent change about a year or so ago where they came back and said, no, it's not the effective date on the contract, it's when we notified you, which was before the effective date on the contract by email. That means you don't have 10 days. You may have 3 days to do your actual inspection. Now, are you actually doing an inspection? Hey, the agent's going to say to you, how long is it? You're a pro. How long does it take you to do an inspection? And your answer has to be, I don't do them. I have my contractor do them, and I want 10 days. Again, Fannie Mae, 10 days. You can pick the closing agent, despite what your listing agent may say to you, we're going to use my closing agent. You do not have to do that. If you pick your closing agent so you have control, you do have to pay for title work. I'm not going to get into more of these small details. Next thing that comes up is, what about the other banks and so on? They can be anywhere from 5 to 7 days. Now, is 5 to 7 calendar days enough? Depends on how big your buyer's list is. If your buyer's list is enough, if your buyer's list is large enough, you should be able to sell any property in 24 to 72 hours. If you can't, get a bigger buyer's list. Make it larger. Okay, let's talk about let's talk about now what most contracts are. It depends on the state. Some of them are written into it. As I look at some other state contracts, it says the inspection period shall be whatever it happens to be, and it's in the contract. Where did that contract come from? It came from the Realtors Association in collusion. I'd say collusion, that's not fair. In cahoots with the Bar Association. Bar Association, how many days do you need? Realtors said as few as possible. And they said, well, let's be fair and give them 7 days. They wrote it into the contract. Read your contract. Otherwise, remember, let's say you sign on Friday, day 1. Saturday, Sunday, you're into 3 days before Monday comes up, you're into day 4. You put it out to your list on day 4. Day 5, you have somebody come back, says, I want to buy it. I want to look at it. Day 6, he hasn't signed a contract. There you are on day 7. And now you have a decision. Do I go forward or do I cancel my contract? Most of the time, by squeezing you into a more smaller inspection period, what the agent has done is he's forced you to cancel. Now in their mind, they're forcing you to come to closing. What happens when you cancel? It taints the property. And oftentimes they have to reduce the price just to get another contract. So I'm not going to get into the spiral of why listing agents do things that they think are important that will bring you to the table that actually they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's almost like giving them an automatic, a 22 caliber automatic full magazine and saying, here, use this up by shooting yourself in the foot. And they typically do about 6 or 8 things or more, or if they had just let it alone and not done anything but come to closing, they could have gotten a substantial check for their commissions. By the way, we'll talk about substantial checks for realtors. So, some states have an actual default. If you don't put anything in, it defaults to, in our state, 15 days. 15 days is reasonable, okay? Now, I've gone past my 2 minutes. I should have made it a 3-minute tip video, or 5 or 10 minute, or however long it took. Nonetheless, we're going to get into other aspects of what do you do if, as you get into the inspection period and the inspection period ends. Talk to you in the next 2-minute tip.